I don't really know where everybody's up to in understanding, so I'm going to kind of talk through the whole thing. Wave me forward if it's getting boring. We've changed some naming. We've been throwing names around constantly, and it feels important to get it right. But Kairos we settled on fairly recently, the God's timing, an opportune time moment, and we threw around the idea of community church. We don't like church. I mean, we do like church, but we don't like the connotations of church. And community felt too static. So we're kind of embracing the idea of movement, and Methodism's supposed to be a movement shaped for mission. I think that was the tagline, wasn't it? So we're trying to we feel that's an important thing to say, and we've been trying to develop some documents, some sentences that describe our values, because we're not an organization, we're a kind of collective around values. We're trying to hone those so they speak to those who might join us. So this presentation will show some of those. We've got a couple of documents to share with you. One designed for those who are inside, who are disaffected, and one for those who've never been in church, who might feel there's something for them. And my aim is to give you a little taste of those, and we'll circulate those after, so you can chew over them and reflect back on us, if that's okay. The breathing in and breathing out that we did at the start, the tree is a symbol of that for us. There's the kind of the drawing in of the roots, and then the giving out, the fruit, the leaves. We're looking for something that's offering a balance to life in all its dynamics, really. So hence the symbol, and we kind of use that to unpack things. Flourish Circuit, Circuit 16. Apparently, the number 16 has been taken. So, but we one of our key values we think is flourishing, and so we haven't just nicked it from the gathering, but we feel it's a word that sums up everything we want to say. And so for the time being, at least, Flourish Circuit is what we imagine we're trying to create. So within the movement, then, we've got in the branches of the tree, and we'll unpack this a bit, we've got people gathered around either focused interest, social action, loving expressions into the world. They could be networks, they might be things like food banks, they might be specific worship gatherings around a flavour of being or a flavour of expressing oneself. So we have the giving out at the top, and at the bottom we've got the grassroots groups, which are resonant of cell groups, of small groups. But unlike a cell group, we are not suggesting that those people themselves do the mission. That there's different groups. The Kairos groups and the grassroots groups are independent, and deliberately so. Joining the two together, we have these series of gatherings that will be large and small, virtual and physical. And importantly, we think a network of people who are there to help individuals blossom and groups blossom. So mentoring, spiritual direction, times to reflect, times to gather, get to know one another. And then the other piece of the pie is the foundation. We want this to be connected into the Methodist Church. We want it to be undergirded and strengthened by the processes and the structures, but not too tightly tied to it. So that the point of this is freedom to grow from. The lattice, is that what we called it? The lattice, the trellis, that's the one, the trellis, as was described at Flourish, if you like, that allows us to grow without too much baggage and keep these things quite light. The values we've come up with so far, and we still wrestle with the words, but flourishing is the overarching thing. We want people to flourish as individuals, as communities, and we want there to be some intention about that actively we're looking to disciple people through community, in community. We expect people to anticipate being changed, growing with Jesus, and through that growing, wanting to change the community around them, and through that process of changing, and that reflective, sorry, Siri's woken up, and that reflective cycle, pastoral cycle, then more change happens. It's a theological positive loop. interwoven, you know, we're saying we want to focus on individual growth, and we want to help people find their ministry, their calling, their gifting. But we know that happens best in community, and we know we only express Jesus in community. And part of that discovery is about being in community. So it's connection, if you like, in our Methodist language, but it's recognizing we need each other. And then evolving. One of the things we're really bad at in the church is solidifying everything as soon as we've done it twice. And so we want to build into it, as we do in our covenant prayer, but we don't really take it seriously enough, a reevaluation, a kind of questioning of what is my portfolio of activity, when am I breathing in and breathing out. So a network of people and peers who are helping each other do that, and think about what is my next step, what is my combination of belonging that will enable me and my community to grow. So hence actively changing, and we commit to that. The breathing in and breathing out, so an example of our leaves on the tree, the Kairos Groups, just a few things that we have in mind, but the list is endless. Steph Cooper has already mentioned something called Piece Together, which is a kind of using a series of craft course to help people deal with the baggage in their lives. And she's taken some Syrian refugees through that and ended up in quite interesting, deep conversations with them. So we think that might be a Kairos expression. These are the things that both interact with the world. The stuff on the fringe, the things that people would encounter and be blessed by. So these are the kind of touch points that will bring people into the love of Jesus. And then we then invite them to go deeper by becoming part of a grassroots group. These were all the same colour, but I've changed them so they're different colours. Do you want to describe the grassroots groups, Leanne, a bit more?
Yeah. So the grassroots groups are a place where we're intentionally being formed. It's kind of applying that that call we have to confession to each other, I guess, and that place where you can be safely honest with other people and belong. So, and we also, because we want people to flourish, we want to look at things like the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs and help people to understand themselves. So we want to help people to access different courses and resources. One of the things that I've started is I've got 2 pilot groups going, looking at the 12 steps and using the 12-step process as a sort of discipleship. So looking at the way that we can all get addicted to patterns of behaviours, ways of thinking, things like that, and using the 12-step model to work through. So there's 2 smaller groups that we've started with that already, and a larger group that is starting, and that's just proven to be really beneficial for all of us involved.
They gather around different things, don't they? So one group is kind of people who are kind of burning out and in their 30s in church. Another group is quite fringy and ecumenical, and that's an important consideration here with Steve in mind. But that we don't want to be we don't have to a Methodist edge to this. We want to, you belong, and then you work towards belief, rather than you believe and then you can belong. We want to go the other way around. Both sides, we want to have a toolkit. So we have toolkits around the missional groups. We have the seed funding, we have training, we have mentors to get people together and see where the mission might take us. The grassroots, likewise, we might gather around specific foci. So the network in the middle that helps network people together, find people who are at similar points. Maybe they want to investigate prayer, maybe they want a monastic rhythm. We want each group to be unique in a sense, and to have a purpose to it. So they will be commonality in values, but maybe quite a big diversity across both groups. So this is kind of overview, just a different version. So we've got this trustee body I haven't said so, but this is a district-wide circuit with a single church, and that kind of is one trustee entity. So it does all the things Methodism requires of that, and provides this trellis to what goes below. So most of the demanding things I see happening at that top level, at least a lot of the burden taken away. We'll obviously have to make it real below, but we want to keep things as light as possible for those who are part of this. There will be an oversight group that will be drawn from those who emerge as natural leaders, I think, but they will emerge rather than the model of here's some use, great, what are you going to do? It's going to be what comes up grassroots wise, I think. And down at the bottom, we've got the members. So the members of the mission out teams, the members of the grassroots. There is Venn diagram. So there will be some that are only members of Kairos. Maybe they're not church at all. Maybe they're part of the food bank or something, and they're there because they believe in that. We would hope to draw them in, but we recognise they may not be. They may be Catholics and Baptists and who just couldn't bring themselves to, become part of us, but we would walk with them, and we don't find that easy. And so this is a mechanism where we think we can do that. And then, but we would hope that there is a big overlap, because the grassroots is where church happens, or at least where that belonging and growing and nurturing part of church happens. So both sides are required. We're not great in our balance at the moment. We tend to have very good nurture or very good mission, and we don't tend to have the whole discipleship and the interplay and the thing between the two. And so the gatherings, I mean, people say, where's the church in this? The gatherings, we are not going to set in stone what they are, but we think they will be probably monthly at best for worship. We'll probably have a combination of gathering for worship and gathering around maybe a keynote in terms of an area of missional interest or learning. So there may be learning as much as worshipping, and maybe geographically local, and as well as kind of across the patch. Because we're district wide, I think we'll do a lot virtually with, fairly much less regular physical gatherings, because that's going to be hard. But we want to make those connections strong. So what we've learned to do in COVID with Zoom and WhatsApp, and we're going to draw on that new experience. It's going to be the game changer for making this a reality, we think. The network resources, we've got a few strings on our bow. I've been investigating 5Q. We've got some pioneer development programs with Cliff College, with a place in Cumbria, Starfish Network, Leanne's 12 Steps. We've got a whole raft of possible training routes, but also just experiential things that we can offer to people. But the mentoring, I think, is the key. I think we need this active challenge that's brought, and I think that's largely going to be through grassroots leaders meeting as their own kind of group and acting as their own, accountability and challenge group. So this is just one of the things we learned from Lee Coates in Whitby, and comes up in 5Q. Jesus had different groups of people around him. There was obviously the threes. He had the inner circle who, were up there with the transfiguration. The disciples were the 12s. He had the 72 who went out on mission, and then he had the hundreds that gathered around him to follow him, and some fell away and some stuck with him. So we want to have different scales of interaction. So we will push, suggest, encourage a personal devotional life of some description and offer tools. There will be the mentoring, prayer triplets, we think, or some form of more intimate. And then we've got the grassroots groups, leaders huddling, and then the interest gatherings. Kairos groups are likely to be larger. So it's kind of different ways, different patterns of being together. The word membership I really hate, because it is that belonging, believing, and we want to get away from that. We've taken a leaf out of the Northumbrian community who have friends. If you're interested, you'll be on the mailing list, you'll follow, you'll check out the website, you get the social media news. You might give, you probably go on a retreat, you'll attend a course, but you are at a distance. So they're the kind of, the community role, I suppose. The shapers, if you are belonging to a group, grassroots Kairos, if you're invested in what we're doing, if you ascribe to the values, then you are part of what is shaping the whole, is the idea. Everybody's steering the ship, and we'd ask for a financial donation. And then we haven't got this word right, because we're kind of trying to capture catalysts and guides, but those people who are doing the leadership, who are mentoring, who are offering spiritual direction, who are doing training, who are coaching, all the various ways in which we disciple, be pastoring, those who are offering above and beyond, we just want to recognize that as well. We wrestled a bit about, does any of this need formal Methodist membership? The trustee body will, because it's CPD. I would really love it if nothing below did have to be, but we obviously want some level of accountability that says we recognize the values, we agree not to, that kind of contractual buy-in or something like that, but allows them to be fully Catholic, but part of. So I'm seeing this as a tertiary thing. So like you can be a member of the Northumbrian community and still a fully paid up Methodist, for example. So we've been wrestling with this why, and I don't know if we got there, but why join us? So this is for people who don't do church. We've been sort of questioning random people that we know who are networked in community. And so we've come up with these things which we think a life with Jesus in community with Jesus can offer, and responds to the things they're expressing as out of balance in their lives. So a desire to live a full life. I don't know about you leading funerals. When you can say they lived a full life, everybody smiles. Everybody wants to live a full life. I think that speaks to people. And the COVID has taught us about the value of community and family. To be part of something. Some of the people who fell out, who left the churches I was involved with, they said, oh, well, when we were with you, we felt we were making a difference. We felt we were part of something that was making a difference. So belonging to something that's actively making a difference, and doing it with others. So we talked about Parkrun as being an organisation that shepherds people. You can belong to it, but you are shepherded. There's a sense of we each help each other. So we've kind of drawn those models. Meaningful spiritual encounter. I think people are really hungry for that, but maybe they don't look to the Christianity for it. But we kind of say, well, we can have that, we can offer that, and there are many ways in which we can offer that to you. To find their value, self-esteem. I think the Facebook generation struggle with that generally, because they only see the best of everybody. So, being valued as they are, I think is known. And I hope this would be more, but I hope there were more people wanting to transform the world. My experience of chatting to people is those people who've got Maslow's hierarchy under their belt and are dealing with the spiritual alone are wanting to change the world. Lots of people are just wanting to pay the rent and make sure the kids are happy, and they don't really go into that space. But for some, that is important for sure. What about existing Methodists? This is where so there are those, I think, who want to be moving and want to be making things happen. I think there are those who probably a bit stifled in their discipleship and can't find roots within their current context. I think one of the things that the key thing about this is we're removing this idea not just of one building but one congregation, that your ministry and your growth has to happen in one place with one group of people. And if the only outlet is the coffee morning, that's what your ministry looks like. And I disagree with that. And most people who are growing have broken free of that, at least partly, by volunteering outside the church. New patterns of community. I think people have lots of connections, but not deep ones. So we want to offer that. And a wider set of Christian practices. See you later, Steve. Thank you. John Wesley drew on a real wide spiritual base, and we have a breadth to offer, and I don't think we offer it to our Methodist churches very often. So we want to expose them to that offering. And they're calling within a wider community. There are lots of people. We're kind of casting around for people who are eco warriors, and we're finding people, but they don't have traction in their individual churches. And we think together we would have for definite. What about ministers? I was sharing a little bit of this with Rory, saying, well, this would be, cool. But he was going, yeah, but I don't want it to be just a fringe thing. I want it to be part of our life as well. So this is my first off response. Why would you, and this is, you can tell me if this is right as superintendents and ministers. So this is for you and your churches, but to engage in ministry beyond your present congregation, the stuff we want to do as ministers, I think we can't get done with our current congregations. I hope that would be something we could offer. A tertiary place of belonging for us, as well as our congregations. I've directed loads of people at Northumbrian and Franciscan, because that's clearly the kind of feeding they want, and we're not offering it, or the retreat houses. Liberating your passionate individuals who probably chafe at the congregation, at yourself, those people who want change, and you kind of want to give them freedom, but they'll be disruptive. Maybe there's a better place for them to be. Piloting stuff, so taking risks. Lots of churches are burnt out at taking risks, and I think the opportunity to do it where they don't have to take the blame, maybe they can sort of experiment outside of the body, might be good. And I think placements is something we could explore once we're up and running. The idea that you can go and join something and do a taste and see that's something different. And then this is the ecumenical. We've come across lots of people who are excited by what we're doing, but we get to the point of who's going to take charge, who's going to pay, who's it belong to, and then we can't agree because the Baptists want to keep control, or the Anglicans, often the Anglicans, it needs to go to the bishop before it's going to be allowed, and we want a place that is free, at least tangibly. Spiritual horizons, I think it would benefit us from having links with others and being able to work alongside others, and to share resources that they have. I've loved having some sisters from St Andrew in Taizé have been worshipping with us on Sunday morning, French sisters, which has been really delightful. Apparently chatted about our worship over lunch and thought it was interesting and fed back. So, but a stronger breadth spiritually, platform for mission engagement, and a wider network of people. I think this allows us to do the secular links more readily as well, I believe.